critical, and we are grateful for your willingness to share your knowledge and help move this conversation forward. To all of the attendees, thank you for showing up, for leaning in, and for being a part of this moment. Your presence reflects a shared commitment, not just to awareness, but to action. If we are to maximize our impact, we must develop a shared understanding of the importance of representation in clinical research and recognize the role each of us plays in advancing equity in healthcare. Today's discussion is designed to equip us with knowledge, challenge our perspectives, and inspire action that extends far beyond this webinar. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Zora Phillips. Delta Sigma Theta has always stood at the forefront of advocacy, justice, and community empowerment. Today's conversation is deeply aligned with our commitment to health equity. Representation in clinical trials is not just a scientific issue, it's a justice issue. Our goal is to engage and educate you, leaving you inspired and empowered to advocate. We are grateful that you've chosen to spend this hour with us as we learn, reflect, and take action together. Next slide, please. So before we dive into today's content, here's the remaining plan for today's webinar. We'll continue with an introduction of our keynote speaker, Ricky Fairley, who will share her personal story and more information about her advocacy platform, Black Data Matters. Right after the keynote, we'll open up the floor for questions. You can submit them anytime using the Q&A chat box feature. Following the Q&A, we'll transition into a dynamic panel session moderated by Dr. Devonna Williams, featuring 4 outstanding experts: Ms. Latoya Bowles-Johnson, Dr. Angela Herman, Dr. S. Monet Silford Wilson, and Ms. Valerie Worthy. Together, they'll explore the myths and inequities around clinical trials. Next slide, please. All right, so let's get started. Next slide, please. So let's get started. It is my honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Ricky Fairley, CEO and co-founder of TOUCH, the Black Breast Cancer Alliance. Ricky is nationally recognized as an advocate whose work has transformed how the medical community engages Black women in clinical research. Ricky founded her advocacy organization not only to support Black people with breast cancer, but also as a catalyst for changing the conversation around how the disease is treated in women of color. She is a visionary, a survivor, and a relentless champion for equity. She co-hosts The Doctor Is In, a weekly web service on blackdoctor.org on Facebook Live every Wednesday at 6:00 p.m., which boasts 2 million viewers. Her hashtag Black Data Matters is her movement to mobilize the Black community to participate in clinical trial research. This keynote will ground us in the realities of clinical inequities and the urgent need for change. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Ricky Fairley. Ricky, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's so great to be here. I don't know who you were talking about just now, but I'm just trying to save the boob. So am I going to share my own slides?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. Let me just pull my slides up. And it's so great to be here today. I'm sorry to say that I'm not a Delta, but my mom is a 73-year Delta. She'll be 93 on April 25th. And she is very proud, a very proud Delta. And she, is relentless about her sisters. So I'm going to share my trial. I love your name, Clinical Trial Revolution. I'm going to steal that because that's what we're on. So I'll start with my story. I was diagnosed on an annual checkup with my gynae checkup with stage 3A triple negative breast cancer. And I'll explain what that is in a minute, but it's the worst breast cancer. It's the only breast cancer that does not have a drug to prevent recurrence. It comes back very readily, and Black women get it at 3 times the rate of white women. So I was diagnosed. I, did all the things. I had a double mastectomy. I did 6 rounds of aggressive chemo. I did radiation, and my doctor said, "All right, you're okay. Come back in 2 months to get a scan." I came back 2 months later, and they said, "Okay, Ricky, you now have 5 spots on your chest wall. You have 2 years to live. Get your affairs in order." And I said, "I can't really die right now. I have a daughter at Dartmouth. She was a sophomore. So me, you, and God and some drugs, we got to work this out because I can't really die right now. I'm just going to reshare." And so I went and started to fight for myself. I didn't want, I had to figure it out. So I went to Dr. Google, and on Dr. Google right now, there's nothing about, triple negative breast cancer. It's basically said, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die fast. So I actually found a doctor. I was living in Atlanta at the time, and I found a doctor who put me on a clinical trial. And I did a clinical trial, Doug. I did a lot more chemo, and I didn't die, and it's been 14 years. So I'm very blessed survivor and very passionate about this work that I do every day with my dear sister Valerie, who you'll hear from later, and also my blessed Latoya. So everybody, close your eyes just for a second. Close your eyes. And I know I hope I don't have too many, but breast cancer hits everybody. But if you just close your eyes for a second, imagine you're sitting in that doctor's office. You've had a symptom of some sort. You felt a lump or something. You've had some symptom that brought you to the doctor, and you're in that robe with your butt hanging out. It's kind of cold in there. The doctor walks in and says, "Yes, you do have breast cancer. Yes, you do have cancer." How's that feel? Sit with that for a minute. What if it was your mom, your sister, your daughter, your best friend? That's what we deal with every day. We deal with that feeling, and you can't imagine how many calls we get a day with that feeling. So you can open your eyes just to set the stage. And we now know, and I'll show you this, that Black breast cancer is a different disease. And when we started our foundation almost 6 years ago, no one wanted to hear that from me. Even the Black people were saying, "That's not true. Breast cancer is breast cancer." And we now have science to validate that it is different. We have a different disease. We need different science. So here's some of the data, okay? Black women are more likely to die of breast cancer at any age, any stage, and any subtype of breast cancer, of which there are several. We have the lowest 5-year survival rate of anybody. We have a 40% higher mortality rate than white women, a 39% higher risk of recurrence, so we get it back. We have a 71% higher relative risk of death. So when you put equal to equal, apples and apples on the table, insurance, access to care, all those things, we have a 71% higher risk of death. And we're 58% more likely to be diagnosed with de novo breast cancer, meaning it's metastatic from the beginning. So as soon as you're diagnosed, you're stage 4. These numbers are horrific. This is my sweetie pie, Ari, who works for us. She runs our HBCU internship program. She had triple negative breast cancer at 19. But Black women under 35 get breast cancer at twice the rate of white women, die at 3 times the rate. Black women under 50 are twice as likely to die from breast cancer. So think about it. When do you get a first mammogram? You get a first mammogram at age 40. They don't even have a chance, right? And we're twice as likely to get an advanced stage of breast cancer. So Ari had triple negative at 19, 21, and again at 26. She's fighting like a girl. So I'm not sure if you guys are getting 3D mammograms, but if you're not getting 3D mammograms, you're not getting a mammogram. We have to get 3D mammograms because most of us have dense breasts. All of us, when we're young, have dense breasts. They get less dense over age, but mammograms can miss 40 to 50% of breast cancers if you have dense breasts. So it's really critical. A mammogram isn't often enough. If you have a family history, you need to be getting more than a mammogram. We can talk about that later. So let's talk about triple negative breast cancer. There are basically 3 main kinds of breast cancer. And I kind of describe it as, if you imagine there you have a cell and it has a little hole in it, you can put medicine into, right? So one of those is based on estrogen. Everybody has that, every woman. One of those is based on progesterone. And one of them is based on an enzyme called HER2. If you don't have any of those cells with little holes in them, then it's called triple negative breast cancer. So it's, again, it's the only breast cancer that doesn't have a drug to prevent recurrence. And it affects us at almost 3 times the rate of white women. 1 in 5 black women diagnosed with breast cancer will have TNBC versus 1 in 10 for white women. And TNBC is 33% less likely to be caught on a routine mammogram. So it's often resulting in interval cancers, meaning I had a mammogram 2 months ago and now I have cancer, now I have a lump. That's when it happens, right? And nearly half of all breast cancers in Black women are diagnosed at late stages. So triple negative is most often diagnosed when it's pretty severe. And if you're like Ari, if you're a Black woman under 40, there's a 50% chance it's triple negative breast cancer. Isn't that crazy? And we are often diagnosed 10 to 15 years earlier than white women. And you can see the numbers here. Our 5-year survival rate is significantly higher than white women. So it's a horrible disease. That's what I had. So look at these statistics. This is from a scientist named Lauren McCullough out of Emory. And she does a lot of work on the social determinants of health. But Black women with private insurance, so good insurance, are still 60% more likely to die of breast cancer than white women with the same insurance. Black women who live in a high socioeconomic neighborhood are still significantly 126% higher likely to die than their white counterparts in the same neighborhood. So what does that say? You know, people want to blame our situation by access to care, not having insurance, being poor, whatever they say about Black people. This is not the case. It's the science. Our science is different. Our disease is different. And frankly, our physiology has not been a consideration in clinical research. Right now, we only represent about 3 to 4% of participation in clinical research. We don't get biomarker testing, and our biomarker testing, which tells us, you know, different types of breast cancer, and our clinical trial participation are not commensurate with our burden of disease. So I'm not really smart enough to figure out the math for this, but if we're getting triple negative breast cancer 3 times the rate, that means the women in the trials need to reflect those numbers, right? And that's not happening right now. So this is a study we're part of. We're very blessed to be part of this Cancer Grand Challenge. It's a global research study that we're doing in the US, the UK, Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Zambia. So this is a picture of, this is really unpublished data out of one of our labs in London, the Guy's Cancer Center. So on this side, I'll point to it. Can you guys see the kind of bluish one over here? That's a Black triple negative breast cancer cell. The one on I guess I don't want to say right and left because I'm not sure which way you're looking. On the other side is a white triple negative breast cancer cell. Do they look anything alike? Now, I am not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but do they look anything alike? So guess what we're making drugs for? This one over here. Can you see my little arrow? We're making drugs for that one. So what does that mean for us? That means the drugs we're making aren't working for us, which is why you see these crazy numbers. So we actually, a couple years ago, I wrote a definition for Black breast cancer. And you guys can read it. I won't even read it out loud, but it's really, you know, a constellation of exposures and experiences, but lack of science for Black women that causes us to have worse outcomes. Because I wanted people to read it and see it. So I had a bunch of doctors, Val and I, helped us write this definition. So our foundation, we try to take Black women to and through Black breast cancer. And these are a bunch of our programs. I'll talk about some of them today, but I'll give you, you know, my phone number so you can reach out to me if you happen to know anyone who needs help. So we started looking at other diseases too. So this chart just shows you the disease and the burden of disease, the impact on our community. And then the column with the numbers is basically the percentage of people in clinical trials. So you can see with breast cancer, and that 4.5 is kind of a new number. It's been really 3 to 4. But for prostate cancer, you can see Black men are getting prostate cancer at a 65% higher incidence rate, and they're dying at twice the rate of white men. But yet they're not in the clinical trials. And we can show you those cell pictures for prostate cancer, for lung cancer, for colorectal cancer. It's horrible. We also know even for diabetes, for cardiovascular disease, there are a lot of factors that we're now learning about that affect Black people that don't affect white people. And so, hey, we know even like I don't know if you've heard of lipoprotein A. That's a new thing we found in Black blood that in your cholesterol testing that affects Black people that white people don't have. So those clinical trials for those drugs should reflect the Black people. But these numbers are crazy. You could see where we are not represented, and it's really bad. So we have a lot of work to do, you guys, and it's on us, right? So we did a research study about 4 years ago now, because I'm a marketing person. I wanted to understand what's in people's heads, right? So we talked to 300 breast cancer survivors and patients, and we learned two things. The main reason why Black women don't participate in clinical trials is because the doctors don't invite us. Doctors don't tell us about them. Doctors don't include us in the trials. It could be illicit bias. It could be just pure racism. They don't want to lose a patient, whatever. And even when the patient brings up a clinical trial conversation to the doctor, they still walk away feeling ill-equipped, uninformed, and not sufficiently informed to really make a decision with their families. The second reason, and equally as important, is we heard, I'm going to get a sugar pill and die. I don't want to die. And so, we also have all the sort of mistrust from our history, but it's really a fear of the unknown, not knowing what's going to happen in a trial and not understanding it, right? But think about it. Most people don't know how a clinical trial works, right? They don't know how it works. Do you guys know how it works? Who knows how it works? Basically, I'll kind of give you my ice cream explanation. So if you think about it, you're going to get standard of care in a clinical trial. There is no sugar pill in cancer research. You're going to get the best care that's on the market, right, for your specific disease. So you're going to get that best drug or something new and different. So think about it. You have the ice cream, the chocolate syrup, the whipped cream, and the nuts for standard of care. For a clinical trial, you have the ice cream, the chocolate syrup, the whipped cream, the nuts, and a cherry on top. Who doesn't want the cherry on top? And with these numbers about our disease, if you're a Black woman under 40 and you get triple negative breast cancer, you need to be on a trial. And we now have a lot of drugs coming out that need to have Black women reflected in their performance to see if they work for us. So I'm going to play a video and give you a little picture of our campaign that we developed. We developed this campaign when we trial 4 years ago now to basically educate about clinical trials and educate Black women in our community about what they're up against.
When we trial, we make a difference in breast cancer research.
When we trial, we save Black lives.
When we trial, we defy the odds.
When we trial, we do it for our sisters.
When we trial, we do it for our daughters and our sons.
When we trial, we set a new standard of care.
I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer.
I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer at 19 years old.
I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer at 38.
All you hear is cancer, cancer, cancer. You never think about what the doctor's saying.
Then the doctor looked at me and he said, "Did you hear what I said?" And I said, "Yeah, but I don't know how to be a breast cancer patient."
The numbers for Black women are devastating. Black women have a 41% higher mortality rate than white women. Black women have a 39% higher recurrence rate than white women. Black women get triple negative breast cancer, the worst one, at 3 times the rate of white women. So we're getting breast cancer younger at later stages and earlier ages, and it's just devastating. It's unacceptable.
I know my grandma had it and she beat it, and so I just knew that was gonna be me as well.
So I think then my fight started, was when I realized, okay, I'm up for the fight for my life. So she said, well, I got this good clinical trial. You can go on it as a second phase. And she said, I think it'll work for you. But the first thing I asked her was like, am I gonna be a guinea pig? Because of our, history with the Black culture.
Over the years, clinical trials for many African Americans have been hocus pocus. So, we know about Tuskegee and Henrietta Lacks.
Clinical trial is no longer a dirty word. It is, it's a halo opportunity. It's a message from God. It's an opportunity for you to live past this moment.
but we need to get more African Americans into clinical trials because we are dying at alarming rates, and we have to stop this. We really do.
And right now, there's only a 3% participation rate in clinical trials. And so even the drugs that we're making now, there's no Black bodies being tested. As we built When We Trial, we tried really hard to make it for breasties, by breasties, about breasties, so people could see themselves in what we're doing.
Clinical trials are important. This is top-notch research that we need to have as a Black community.
It's like a butterfly effect. We all got to help each other out in one way to get to the ultimate end goal.
And I think the onus is on us that are cancer survivors to tell the story. And the least that we could do is be on a trial. But how about for your children? And for your children's children, we got to do this thing. We got to save lives. It's just that important.
And you'll see that in a minute. We have to update this chart because we built this website. We put all these videos. There's a bunch of videos. If you go to whenwetrial.org, you'll see there's about 10 videos on the site. We're about to make some new ones for other diseases. But we've now signed up over 33,000 Black women into our clinical trial portal for women searching for trials. So I'm very proud of that number, but it's still not enough because no one from the FDA, where that sort of percentage number comes from, can tell me even what it takes in terms of numbers to move that, move the needle on that 3 or 4% participation. So we have to still keep pushing and keep educating people, but we do have this portal, and if anyone wants to search for a trial, check it out. We can help you. And then we said, we need to do more. We do need to do more. We actually take our When We Trial program on the road. We go to about 100 events across the year. And we love doing events like you guys with Deltas. I've done 2 Delta events actually in the past month. And I'm at a Lynx event today. I had to sneak away and find a closet to do this in. But we love to talk to the community because I feel like when you guys can hear us talk, you get it easier, and we can give you the information that you need. But thank God we have what we call touch care. And Valerie will talk in a minute, but she's been a nurse for 40 years, over 40 years, and she'll tell you this, and a breast cancer survivor for over 25 years. But basically, we have a team of navigators that can talk to women in clinical trials. And now we're partnering with our pharma companies. So we work for pretty much all the pharma companies that make breast cancer drugs. And we help them. We're trying to help them recruit. We're working on, 6 trials right now, helping them recruit Black women for trials. And then we provide 24/7 nurse navigation. So what does that mean? A navigator is someone, and I'll let Val talk about this. I shouldn't even talk about it because she's the pro. But it's basically, we help them with their care and we help them deal with the trials. So most cancer centers, even if they have a navigator, that navigator goes home at 5 o'clock, is probably white. But our navigators are all Black women. They're 24/7, and they're all breast cancer survivors. So they can talk the talk and walk the walk with the patients and make them feel good about what they're up against. And Val, you got your background up. So we like to say we put a hug around the science. We put a hug around the science because Black women don't do a clinical trial because they want to advance science like the pharma companies do. They want to do a clinical trial so they can watch their kid grow, walk across a graduation stage or hug a grandbaby, right? And so we try to bring love there. And we know some data about navigation. You can see these numbers. Navigation works. It makes people feel better and helps them through the trial. And I'm going to go faster because I know we have to finish soon. But in my ideal world, if I had a lot of money, I would build this Victorian house in Black neighborhoods. So basically you walk down that walk down that street, you open that wrought iron gate, you walk up on the porch, the beautiful Black grandmother, who's probably a Delta, gives you a hug, takes your 3 kids into the playroom, feeds them spaghetti, takes you into the treatment room, sits you in a cushy chair, gives you a blanket and a cup of tea, and then turns on Luther Vandross and gives you the shot. And that's what we try to do. We try to make people feel comfortable with trials and help them understand that the science is so important, even wherever they have to have it, but at least kind of in this imaginary cloud, they can at least see something different, right? This is our program for younger women, and I'm going to skip this. We have a program for young to help them understand their risk, and I'll save that. We have a website just for TNBC patients. We have a Belong organization that's basically for women who are advocates in their community. We have over 100 women across the country that work in their communities, and we give them leadership training every month. and coach them and help them do their work. So we have some tentacles in the community. You could see the purple states that we're in. The ones that aren't purple aren't where there aren't too many Black people. So, but we try to reach everybody. And again, I talked about our Cancer Grant Challenge work. We are the first time the Cancer Grant Challenge has ever given money to a disparity study. Our principal investigator is Melissa Davis, who's a diehard Delta. She's at Morehouse School of Medicine. She's the first Black woman to ever get this award. It's a $25 million grant over 5 years in the countries I mentioned earlier. And so we're really trying to understand the disparities of cancers. We have 3 web series. I do it every Wednesday on Facebook Live. We have our Pink Tabletop tomorrow. My daughter does a talk every 4th Sunday, and then we talk on our Soundbite work every month as well. And we have 3 support groups, soon to be 4 support groups. So we try to reach out to women on a monthly basis and give them a safe haven to talk about cancer. And, at the end of the day, and I tell this to anyone working in our space, I'd say, and I challenge pharma with this, our pharma partners and our scientists that we work with, when you wake up in the morning, think about the golden rule. What your grandmother taught you when you were 2 years old, right? Treat others as you want to be treated. And doctors, all doctors don't do that. All nurses don't do that. All medical professionals don't do that. All scientists don't do that. So I challenge them and say, well, what if this was your mother? Put that robe on. What if this was your sister, your daughter, your friend? And if we all did that, we'd have a different medical system. We'd really have a health system and a wellness system, not a sick system, which is what we have now. So I like to say our tagline for research is, we are the science we've been waiting for. And I challenge all of you to think about clinical trials, talk about clinical trials, and make people, know it's safe. It's the best place for us to be as Black people, because the drugs aren't working for us. So this is my tribe that I work for every day. I have 4 granddaughters. I have 1 grandson on the way in July, but I don't want them to ever think about breast cancer. I want to put myself out of a job, and it's only going to happen with science. So thank you for having us today.
Thank you, Ricky, for grounding us in both truth and possibility. Your leadership continues to inspire and challenge us. Now we have maybe just some time for maybe 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Sora Momin, do we have any questions in the Q&A chat box, please?
I do not see any in the chat box just yet.
Okay. So we
Great.
will now, pardon me.
Good.
Thank you so much again, Ricky. We will now transition into our expert panel discussion, moderated by the distinguished Dr. Devonna Williams. Dr. Williams is a respected strategist, leader, and advocate whose work has shaped organizations and communities across the region. As president and CEO of Going Williams Associates Incorporated, Dr. Williams has contributed her talents to helping over 60,000 individuals and hundreds of organizations across all industries increase their performance and effectiveness. Dr. Williams also facilitated the community outreach component and established the Community Advisory Committee for the Excel Project several years ago, which is still functioning at Christiana Care, where the focus is on clinical research. She holds a doctorate in urban affairs and public policy from the University of Delaware's Biden School of Public Policy. At this time, I'll turn the conversation over to our panel moderator, Dr. Devonna Williams, who will provide a brief introduction of our panelists and begin this meaningful conversation. Dr. Williams, over to you.
Well, thank you, Debbie. It's just so great. It's such an honor and privilege to be here today with this awesome panel of women, and hearing this great presentation by Ricky Fairley. It was pretty awesome, and I learned so much more. I'd like to introduce to you our distinguished and lovely ladies, our panelists today, very briefly. Tell you a little bit about them, and then we'll get right into our discussion. First, I'd like to introduce to you Latoya Bolds Johnson, who is a breast cancer survivor advocate, wife, mother, and experienced physician assistant specializing in emergency medicine. She holds a degree from Prairie View A&M, and Howard Universities, and currently works as a sub-investigator in clinical research. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Angela Herman, the director of the Health Sciences program at Wilmington University, who oversees associate, bachelor's, and master's degree programs and teaches across all levels. And with nursing degrees from University of Delaware and a Doctor of Nursing practice from Wilmington University, she has managed cardiovascular clinical trials at Christiana Care for over 24 years. And next, I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Monet Sifford Wilson, who brings over 30 years of experience in clinical medicine, pharmaceuticals, and philanthropy. She transitioned into leadership roles, managing diverse teams at Pfizer and overseeing the launch of innovative products like inhaled insulin. Monet currently serves as the senior director, team leader for Pfizer's GI East team, collaborating across drug development functions. And she practices medicine in clinical settings and earned her medical degrees from the University of Maryland School of Medicine with a residency at Ohio State University. And lastly, we have Valerie Worthy, who is a registered nurse and co-founder of Community Lifesaver with over 38 years of experience in patient navigation and community nursing, a 21-year breast cancer survivor. You heard a little bit about Valerie before. She collaborates nationally to support African American women with breast cancer and advocates for early detection and health education. In 2003, she was co-founded the local chapter of Sisters Network, Inc., and her story features on an educational kiosk traveling throughout North Carolina. Valerie has received a number of awards, including the American Cancer Society's Lane Adams Quality of Life Award, recognizing her significant role in cancer care. Wow, that was a mouthful, but look at all the loads of experience that we have from this awesome panel. And so having said all that, let's get right into our discussion. Oh, wow. Lots of great information from Ricky. Ricky, thank you so much. I thought I knew about the triple breast cancer problems of triple negative. Thank you. I thought I knew about that, but you shared so much more information. So I'm going to ask the whole panel, all of you, and whoever can respond first. What are Black communities? Why are they still underrepresented in clinical trials despite decades of awareness? And I know Ricky touched on some of these factors, but based on your experience, why is that still a problem in our communities?
Well, I think a lot of it, you say decades of awareness, but awareness where? I don't think the awareness has been in our community. It's been universal, or you could read a medical journal, but it's not getting down to our community. And I think one of the biggest reasons is that our doctors, the ones that we see in the community, don't know how their patients can benefit from clinical trials. So as a physician, if I don't know how you can benefit, how am I going to talk to you about participating in a clinical trial? So I think it's not just the patient, it's the doctors as well. They're focused on what they need to do, and many of them don't know how their patients can benefit.
So you touch on awareness and understanding, which is a little different than that. Thank you for that. Angela, I'm going to go to you on that same question.
I would definitely agree with Monet. When you're running a clinical trial, I ran them through the hospital to try and get out to all the peripheral sites and let them know the trials, the benefits, the criteria. It's almost overwhelming, and yet that's really where we need to be. So the processes aren't in place. And if the physicians don't understand the benefit to the patients, they won't be able to clearly communicate that to them. So somehow, and I love the idea of the nurse navigators, we have to really be able to blanket those communities and let both physicians, providers, and patients know what's available to them, and then take the next step about why they should consider it.
Thanks, Angela. And I see we had a question in the chat about an 80-year-old. Is an 80-year-old eligible to, and Ricky fairly answered, eligible to participate in clinical trials? So panelists, can you comment on that? And I'll go to LaToya, because I know you work directly with patients. Your comments on ages of the women.
Yeah, I was just going to say, well, first, I want to say that I know for me, personally speaking, I asked to be part of clinical trials. I was sending my doctor clinical trials and I was still dismissed. So we still have issues there where, you know, someone, and I understand that I have an advantage because I am a clinician, so I understand the importance of clinical trials. But I just want to be straightforward. Even when, you know, Black women are asking to be a part of clinical trials, we're still being dismissed. So I had to fire my first oncologist and go and get another oncologist who was willing to enroll me in the clinical trial and help me navigate there. And then secondarily, with me now being a clinical trial sub-investigator, yes, I mean, they're really, it just really depends on how the clinical trial is designed. As Ricky said, for someone who asked about the 80-year-old being enrolled, yes, there's like brain studies. I'm working on a clinical trial right now that tests biomarkers called p-tau217 that can show early signs of Alzheimer's dementia in the blood for different brain protein breakdowns. So it just really depends on the design of the study. Don't ever be intimidated by age or any other comorbidities. Just ask. That's part of it. And if you're not getting the answer that you want from one physician, there's plenty of other physicians who, you know, may help you understand the reason why you can be included or excluded.
Thank you for that. And just to follow up with Valerie on the same question, and in addition to that, what do you think can be done to educate and make more awareness to doctors and physicians who are treating patients? What do you think?
So what I'm finding out is that in most communities, people that look like us go to the community hospitals. And so if you think about an academic center that has all the scientists, all of the quote know-hows, and then you think about a community center, which is far more welcoming than the academic center, that's where a lot of people that look like us, underrepresented minorities, are going to. And so pharma has to take that step to equip these groups, these community organizations with what they need, the staffing, give the oncologists time to study. You know, all those trainings that you do on city drives you crazy, but you know, you got to do all of this stuff. The nurses as well, so that community center is actually equipped to see the patients that are coming through the doors. I live in Durham, North Carolina, and our community says, we don't care what you know until we know that you care. And so they will go to the community centers. And one other thing I wanted to say, for those of us that have been on clinical trials and have gone successfully through it, we have to tell the story. African American people are people of witness. If they see someone going through and they've gone through successfully, then they believe that the trial is not, you know, they're not a guinea pig on the trial, but they can go through it. And so we have to teach people how to tell their stories. And then we also have to go back to these communities, the churches, you know, the sororities, and tell the success or failure of the trial so that people are aware of actually what is going on. And sometimes the trials are failure because there's not enough of us that are involved in the trial. So we have to, you know, start changing this narrative so that it is in the community and for the community.
Yeah, lots of ways to raise awareness, both from using community navigators to better educating doctors to educating and empowering patients to be able to volunteer and be a part of clinical trials. Valerie, I want to stay with you and ask you to tell us what are your thoughts about the misperceptions that are out there when it comes to Black women in clinical trials? What have you found to be out there?
When I'm talking to women, they don't get asked, but they still are afraid of being a guinea pig. Honestly, they say that. So when I explain to them that our dosages, our frequency is based on who the majority is, and if we're not represented, we become the guinea pig after the medication is approved by FDA in reality. So I say to them, wouldn't you want to be on a trial where someone is checking you for every little thing and everything is recorded? But once it's approved, you don't have that luxury of someone checking your blood pressure, doing all of the x-rays, all the scans that you need. But I think people don't realize what guinea pig actually means. So just this past week, my doctor tried to give me a new medication. It had so many side effects. I was like, I'm not taking it. It's already approved. I'm not taking it. Had it been on a trial, maybe I would have considered it. But the side effects frighten me. And so, yeah, we got to get people to understand when you should be afraid of taking a medication, not while you're on a trial.
So that guinea pig is a kind of a reality there, the thinking, that misperception. Dr. Monet, your thoughts about the misconceptions that are out there with respect to clinical trials?
Well, I love what Valerie said, that we as a people are a witness society. We need to see it. And I would venture to ask anybody on this panel, how many of you know somebody that's been in a trial? And other than if you work in that area, right? So to say my sister, my cousin, my next door neighbor has done this and survived. I have a friend, I was hoping he would be on today, just started his 3rd clinical trial last week for a rare tumor. And he's grateful. I mean, those 3 trials have kept him alive, but most of us don't see how God has worked in our community to save some of us. And sometimes when we are the benefits of that trial, I feel like if it were me, I want to be standing on the mountaintop like Ricky and Valerie and folks that she works with. But I don't think we see that. We've not witnessed it much in our community. So I think it's up to us to really bring more visibility from the survivors.
Yeah, so that ties right into doing a better job of telling our story.
Yep.
Through community channels and venues like this,
through
to
every
share
channel,
and increase every
Yeah.
channel. Very important. Let's talk about the historical context. So, Ricky touched on that in her remarks. What can we do to rebuild or build trust in our communities when it comes to clinical trials?
I can tell you in my work in the pharma industry, I don't know how many people have mentioned Tuskegee and Henrietta Lacks. And if you ask them to explain it, they can't tell you what it is. They just know it's kind of permeated through our community. But realizing that that was so long ago, and also I love Henrietta Lacks' story, even though it was was kind of tough. But look where her story got us to this day. So I think a lot of that is rooted in fear. We don't trust anybody. So it's hard to say, the doctor is no different. The clinical trial is no different. And as a almost 40-year member of the National Medical Association, we have done so much work to train our Black physicians because most of us now live all over the world. We're not nestled in small cities and small communities anymore. So being able to train our doctors to talk to patients, to bring it down to their level so that they understand what a trial actually is. And unfortunately, many of us physicians, we speak in big words, but you have to be able to break it down. And so we need our Black physicians, our physicians of color, to be able to tell a true story. And unfortunately, many aren't able to tell that story effectively.
Thanks for that. And I would suggest that it's not just the Black physicians, it's all physicians, because most of us are not necessarily treated by Black physicians.
But I can tell you that one of the things that happens a lot of times, for especially friends that go to a white physician, they'll go and then they'll come back and ask me, what do you think? Because you kind of want that okay from somebody you know and trust. And so by all means, it's all physicians. But again, if somebody asks you a question, your kids call you every day to ask you questions, right? They want you to okay what somebody else has said. And we do that with our parents too. So I feel like the onus is on us as a minority community to be able to do that.
Great. You make a great case for that. And Angela, your thoughts on what do we do to rebuild trust?
Well, it is hard. And obviously, I'm not from the African American community. So when I would go in to speak to a patient, I really had to think long and hard about how to get behind that and break through those barriers. And sometimes it was exactly that. What do you know? What are your fears? How can I help you, get that understanding that you need? I think Valerie mentioned it a little bit. I always say to patients, being in a clinical trial gives you that second set of eyes. You will have a coordinator that will be with you every step of the way and have that phone call, as Monet says, that you can reach out to us and, this is happening. I might find your blood pressure is high and, take you in another direction to help you in that as well. So, having them understand that there are additional benefits and just having that oversight, sometimes can allay some of their fears about some of the other things.
Yeah, so then it's building rapport with the patient and the training. And Latoya, is there anything else that we should consider when it comes to strategies to rebuild trust?
Well, certainly I'm working on something now because I feel like we need to really educate the providers, not just physicians, but nurses, nurses navigators, social workers, PAs like myself, nurse practitioners, everybody. It takes a team. I don't feel like everything should rely on the physician. I think it's a multidisciplinary team approach because, the physician, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, we have scheduling where, you have 15 minutes to see the physician that might be chopped down to 10 minutes and they just can't talk about everything. So I think it requires a team. I think it requires more education really at the medical school level and our community physicians as well. And also just explaining things in plain terms where people can understand. And also people need to understand that clinical trials is not a last resort. That people often think that you have to be terminal or in hospice in order to be a part of a clinical trial, and that's not the case. I just enrolled in a clinical trial the other day just for survivors, putting microgreens on everything that I eat. So, in studying, your fecal content. So it's not just about understanding the last resort. The reason why I wanted to be a part of a clinical trial is because I needed my Black body to be studied because I have 3 little girls who will have boobs one day. And if we can't study the problem, how can we get to the solution? We already know that a Black breast cancer cell looks different from a white breast cancer cell. So if I'm not part of the number, how can we get to the solution? It's a basic science experiment that we have when we were in elementary school, the who, what, when, where, why. So the who is everybody. The drugs are not going to be effective for me if the science is different. If my breast cancer cell, the morphology, the whole composition of it looks different. So that is my explanation. That is my why. And my medical trust fund, I built my medical trust fund when I enrolled in the clinical trial. It was no different than building a 529 for my children. I needed this was my way of being part of building a medical trust fund for my 3 daughters.
Okay.
And
Well, it
if
looks
I could
like
just say one thing too, and Ricky said it and Latoya said it, Ricky mentioned the cherry on top, the care you get in a clinical trial. Half of us complain, I can't get to my doctor. The care, somebody's there for you 24/7 in a trial. The care you get, often your medications are covered. Often you get payment to go, you get parking. The care that you get, people are listening. You don't have that 10, 15 minutes anymore. They'll take as long as it takes to answer your question. So I used to tell patients all the time, I can't afford my medication, but if you enroll in this trial, your medications may be covered. So it's the care that you get. It's beyond anything you could think of.
Okay, well, our time is up. There is so much more we could talk about. I'll give one more final word to you, Valerie, and then I'll turn it back to Debbie. Valerie.
I think we have to really go into our faith-based communities and educate people before they get a cancer because it's hard to make an informed decision when someone tells you you have cancer. So if we plant the seed, maybe somebody else can water it, but we do need to start before people get diagnosed with cancer.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Let's give our panelists a round of applause. We thank you so much. And back to you, Debbie.
Thank you so much, Dr. Williams. At this time, we probably have just maybe time for maybe 1 or 2 questions in the chat. So Ramon, are you able to read maybe 1 or 2 questions in the chat, please?
Sure. Our panelists and Ricky have been answering some of the questions in the chat. One generalized question I see is, what is the new recommended age for mammograms?
I'll answer that one. This is Ricky. Can I come back on? Right now it's 40, which guess what is too young for Black people. If you have a family history or any kind of cancer in your family, not even just breast cancer, you need to get a risk assessment. They recommend getting a risk assessment at age 25. And at age 25, you'll have a risk assessment by your doctor that will basically do genetic testing for you, talk about your family history. And frankly, the genetic testing was, guess what, based on white bodies. So we really don't even know about our genetics. So if you have a history in your family, you should sit down with your family, know her story. I'll put our website for that in the chat, but talk to your grandmamas on both sides, your aunties, everybody, and really understand your family history, because 40 is too late for us.
Yeah, in medicine, generally we say 10 years before the earliest breast cancer in your family. So if your mom had breast cancer at 40, you should be at least 30, you should be screening. So as a rule of thumb, 10 years before the first cancer.
Absolutely. And I can personally attest, I was diagnosed with stage 3C triple negative breast cancer at age 36 while I was breastfeeding. And I had no known family medical history, and all of my genetic traits are still negative to this day. So if you feel a lump, the most important thing is if you feel a lump, you should ask for a 3D mammogram, regardless of the age.
Yeah. It should only be 3D.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our breasts
Gotta
are
get
dense.
3D. Yeah.
And there are a lot of websites being put in the chat that we can put together and send to all of our participants with our feedback survey, so that way they'll be able to visit those websites.
Yeah, we have 5 websites. I'll send them to you, Debbie. So for different stuff, but we have a great tool to know your history. It's a worksheet you can download and sit down with your families on Easter. Hello, Easter dinner's coming. We need to make kind of generational health a family conversation at the kitchen table.
And if I could put a plug in for blackdoctor.org, I sent that link to all of my friends when I started years ago working with Reggie and the group. Amazing information for us. So just go on and just get their emails, blackdoctors.org.
Yeah.
They're the voices that are thinking and talking like we think and talk. And so great information. Have it drop in your inbox on a regular basis.
Yep. And I'm on there every Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. So if you want to, we talk about everything. This week, we're going to talk about the impact of AI on Black health. So I'm on blackdoctor.org every Wednesday night, wherever I am. It's crazy.
Well, thank you so much to all of our wonderful panelists and to our moderator. Next slide, please. As we are preparing to close, I want to leave you with this. Representation in clinical trials saves lives. When our communities are included in research, treatments become safer, more effective, and more equitable. Each of us has a role to play. Sharing accurate information and share your personal stories. Encourage participation in clinical trials and advocate for systems that honor our voices. And lastly, stay informed and engaged. Next slide, please. So thank you to our speakers, our panelists, and every attendee who joined us today. Your presence reflects your commitment to health equity and community empowerment. We will be forwarding a survey to you and a one-pager to your attention that contains helpful links and resources. On behalf of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Dover Alumni Chapter, thank you for being a part of this important conversation. To the beautiful ladies of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, happy Sisterhood Month. And to all the beautiful women who joined us on this call, happy Women's History Month. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and let's continue the work together. Good day, everyone.